I actually had this little backpack underneath my bed that has all the things I need if, shit hits the fan.
He really taught us as a team the importance of transparency when it comes to our work.
People aren't going to know what product marketing does or what marketing does and all the strategy that goes behind it unless you advocate for yourself. I'm scared of failing. I'm doing a lot of things that are pushing me out of my comfort zone.
I still go to sleep every night feeling really fulfilled because my work really fulfills me. And at the same time, though, I feel like I also know that I'm not prioritizing life enough. Welcome back to Feel Good Lab, the podcast where we explore the intersection between personal growth and career success and all the good stuff that happens in between. So this is episode 3, and today we have a very special guest. She started out her career as a proposal writer at an engineering firm in Vancouver, helping the company land major citywide projects. From there, she moved on to Spare, a mobility tech company that creates accessible transportation solutions for cities across the globe, which I think suits you perfectly because you are always on the move, traveling and exploring the world, from hiking Machu Picchu to attending music festivals in Albania. This girl's been everywhere. So I want to introduce to you Terri Ling. Terri, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Angel. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really honored to be, your first guest on this podcast ever. Woohoo! It's also my first podcast episode ever.
Yeah, I feel like this is almost, we both feel a little nervous, but it's because, context, we are actually very close friends. Terriri's one of my best friends. And so it's always a little weird, inviting your friend on a professional setting. But I just want to preface and say, we can go off tangent. Let's just enjoy ourselves and just chat as if it's just us two, So Terri, I always like to start off the pod with a little feel-good moment. So can you tell us a feel-good moment that you had from this week or the previous week?
I love this question. I think my life is made up of a lot of feel-good moments, but I think the one that comes to mind is this morning I tried a new yoga studio. I'm based in Squamish, and I've heard a lot of good things about this yoga studio, but it was specifically one instructor that I've heard a lot of good things about. And so context is one of my favorite yoga teachers back in Richmond. Her name is Michelle Weisbaum. She's told me that she's learned from Kristen Campbell, who is someone I've always wanted to see here in Squamish. She started teaching again, and I saw her, I took her class, and I just had the deepest connection with her today, talking about the practice of yoga, how she teaches, how she sequenced her class today, and how I made the connection through my previous favorite yoga teacher when I was based in Richmond. So I don't know, it was a really nice feel-good moment because I love practicing yoga here in Squamish, and it's always nice to get that connection point between Squamish and where I'm from.
And I think nobody talks about how important the connection is between you and the instructor, because I've definitely been to classes where I haven't had any sort of feeling or connection towards the instructor, how they teach, and it was just a workout class. But then every once in a while I'll attend a yoga class where I feel so connected with what the instructor is saying or how she's teaching, or maybe even the specific way she's moving her body, the structure of the flow. And it's a totally different experience when you find instructors that you connect with. Nobody talks about that, but it's so important in yoga.
Totally. Otherwise I would just do yoga at home, right?
Totally, yeah.
There's so much access to it. Why do you go out and go take class?
Yeah. But also, Terri's actually training to be a yoga instructor right now as well. So can you tell us about that experience and why did you decide to go after that training program and how it's been so far?
I think my yoga journey started from back in 2015 or so. I remember I was studying at SFU, Simon Fraser University, and I was feeling a bit of a lull between just leaving Hong Kong after my co-op and not being sure of what I wanted to do. So I remember I dove right into yoga, and it was the first time I went on the mat. And then after that hour, I was never the same. And so I really started volunteering for Y Yoga, and that gave me free classes, which then eventually grew my practice more. And this year I was writing my intentions and what I wanted to do for 2024. And I decided to make it the year that, you know, I deepened my practice. And the thing is, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a yoga teacher. I still don't, but there's just like so many things and so many inner learnings that I've uncovered through this practice.
So how far are you in that journey now? Like how long do you have left?
So this class is structured differently so that it's a 9-month program and you only meet one weekend a month, which works really well with my schedule because I'm super busy with work and the cats. And I like the time to journal and reflect on every month and what this practice means for me compared to other programs that are like super quick. So I'm now 6 or 7 months into my 9-month program.
So how, if it's just one weekend a month or like one day a month, how long is that day? Is it just like a full day of practice?
Yeah, you're like totally immersed there from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.
Crazy. That's nuts. Okay. Also, you mentioned your cats. Tell us about Ori and Kylo. I've met them. They are so sweet. I met them when they were kittens and they've just grown so much. But they have grown like such big personalities. And even though they're siblings, they're so different now. So she was telling me about the story about one of her cats just being an escape artist now. But yeah, tell us about your cats.
I'm a crazy cat lady. I really am. Didn't think I would be.
They also converted her, by the way. She wanted to get a dog at first and ended up with not one, but 2 cats. Yeah, how did that happen?
I mean, Angel knows this because I asked you so many things about getting a dog because I found my breeder. I knew the type of dog I was going to get. But it works better with my lifestyle. And my brother brought home a family cat. Crazy story for next time, but our family never allowed us to have cats growing up.
Asian family,
but he snuck one in and he said this big fat lie. And then eventually like my parents just fell in love with the cat. Kudos to Marco, but that's how I fell in love with cats. And I decided I wanted to get my own cat. It was just easier with my travel and my lifestyle in general.
Yeah, that's true. Cats are a lot more low maintenance and they just really take care of themselves most of the time. Whereas like Mika, my dog, is extremely needy. Given I'm also a needy person. So like I feel like our personalities work well together.
Right.
But yeah, I get that. I honestly would love to have a cat as well one day. But anyways, Ori and Kylo. Okay, so what are the personality differences between the 2 cats right now, like as they are at this age?
Yeah, so I guess maybe to answer your first question is I originally went to go see these cats because I knew I wanted a Siberian. They're really friendly and dog-like. And so I went in with the intention of getting one. I picked Ori that day, but my partner came along with me and was like, I was like, hey, babe, do you want to come see cats with me? And we should have known that he would have fallen in love with a cat. So we went in with the intention of me getting one and we walked out with 2 brothers, actually. You couldn't really tell their personalities at first, but now I would say that Ori is very, very much kind of like does his own thing, kind of standoffish at times, but then he'll go through moments or like episodes of dying for cuddles. It's super weird. I would call him like very hot and cold.
Yeah.
And a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
Have you seen that video of him on the paddleboard?
Yes, I've seen the paddleboard story. I've also just seen him on the highest, like on the literal, what is it called? The rail of your patio, just always trying to make an escape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jumps off. He's the first to jump off the patio. But then on the flip side, you've got Kylo, who's more anxious, more of your shadow, but he's like the most cuddly cat you'll ever meet. I don't know if you must have seen Paquito on TikTok.
Yeah.
The cuddliest cat ever. I would say Kylo is on that level.
That's so cute. For those of you who are watching this podcast, in the video version, I'll insert a picture of them because they truly are the cutest cats. And the funny thing is, one of my other close friends who I grew up with, James, also got a Siberian. So I just feel like it's been the year of people getting cats. Like our friend Janice also got a cat, but she got a Scottish Fold.
Yes.
Scottish Fold. But yeah, it's just the year of the cats, man. I kind of really want one. So I feel like I've already just told the Feel Good fam so much about you, but can you tell us something else that's interesting about you before we really dive into your career and your journey thus far?
Yeah, I guess maybe something that is unique about me or a fun fact about me is I grew up watching a lot of like sci-fi, horror, end of the world apocalyptic type movies with my
Mm,
dad.
yeah.
And I know I just grew up loving the idea of surviving in those instances. And I remember when I grew up, I actually had this little backpack underneath my bed that has all the things I need if, shit hits the fan. And I never knew what that meant about me. I grew out of it pretty quickly. But now as an adult, I love to go camping and I love to go in the backcountry. And I've always wondered what drew me to sort of living simply and with very minimal things
Yeah.
and surviving on the lands. So I guess that's a fun fact about me is like, I think I just love the idea of surviving with very little things.
I actually didn't know that about you. I mean, I obviously know that you like to go on adventures and like going camping and doing almost like more. I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's extreme, but it's like more extreme than the average person would do, like the type
Right.
of camping and hiking that you like to do. But how did you come to actually make that correlation between your interest in these like apocalyptic movies and slash the life that you live now?
I think just, being exposed to something as an adult that you love.
Like it kind of
And
clicked.
yeah, I didn't actually get to go camping until, 3 years ago.
Mm.
And I wish I was able to do that much earlier, but when you're not exposed to it, you don't realize.
Yeah.
And so I think it was through repetition and sort of reflecting on like, why do I make the effort to
Yeah.
spend so much money on gear and want to spend so many weekends in the backcountry?
Yeah.
It feels kind of cool, like surviving on the land.
Yeah, totally.
weird.
And she truly, like, there's been a few times where I just don't see Terri for a while. And then I see her and she just tells me about some crazy hike that she's done where she's like bushwhacking, getting stung by hornets. I don't know. It's just wild the level that she wants to take her hiking. I love the idea of going backcountry hiking and going on like expeditions. But if I actually think about how clearly, if I'm not doing it, even though I live in Squamish, I don't want it that bad, Shifting over to your career. So you spend a lot of time at the computer and we know that you work at Spare, but how was it going from, well, for one, going from working at an engineering firm to switching into like tech and something that's really fast paced like Spare? And then recently you also became a product marketer. So how was it going from proposal writer to your role now?
I think it's been quite a journey for your listeners who don't know about where my career actually began. I started, at an engineering and construction firm based in Western Canada, super corporate. And I think the transition for me to go into tech was one that I've wanted for a while. So I was like 4.5 years into that company. And I think at some point, speaking to you, having been in tech, I knew that I wanted to transition to an industry that was a little bit more fast paced.
Yeah.
So I took the plunge like 4.5 years into my career. I also think I felt my career had just capped. And that's like nothing bad about being a proposal writer. I loved it. I loved winning deals. But there was like some element of like not learning anymore on the job and just feeling like you weren't being pushed out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you probably push yourself out of your comfort zone all the time, like working in a startup environment and building your own business. But I didn't have that anymore. And so I remember telling you how much I wanted to break into tech. And funny thing actually is I was job hunting, looking passively for a while. And Angel actually sent me a job posting on Angel List back in 2020. And it was a posting by Spare, the company that I work for today. And so it was kind of cool, just like, I know you flagged that for me as like, that looks like a great fit for you. You love to travel. You talk about like, working for a company that is very mission driven. and you wanted to work in tech. So I think this is like suitable for you. And you know, I applied, and this is me like 3 years later.
Yeah. I remember how I even make that connection at first was because you were telling me about your experiences living in Den Haag. Is that how you pronounce it?
You're right.
Den Haag, yeah. So she studied abroad in Europe for a period and lived in Den Haag. And one thing that always stood out to her was how, not just in Den Haag, but for you specifically in Den Haag, how everybody bikes, and that's how everyone gets around. And it almost felt like bikes were the more dominant wheeled thing on the road, even compared to vehicles, and how much you just really enjoyed that experience of being able to just hop on a bike and go anywhere and meet your friends, and you guys are all riding bikes, and it just made you feel so free and mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had saw that job posting about of Spare, I was like, oh, mobility tech. They're also working with a lot of European cities. It just felt perfect. It just screamed Terri. So I'm really glad that that all worked out. But would you say, because obviously you started as a proposal writer at Spare as well, right? So did you feel like at that point as a proposal writer, if you had stayed as a proposal writer, was there any more steps for you to grow into? Or for those people who might be in that career path of being or becoming or wanting to become a proposal writer, like, does it just cap at that? Is there a step above that, right? Because in marketing, it's pretty clear. Like, it's you're a coordinator, then you're a manager, then you're a director, then you might be a CMO or something. There's a lot of hierarchy, but I guess I just don't really understand what the hierarchy of something like a writing role is within a company.
I think this is a really good question, because when I said earlier that I felt like, you know, my career had capped out, I was still very much into my role and I was very passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I pivoted and applied for the role, funny thing, they were actually looking for a product marketing manager with an RFP writing component. And I think that's why you sent me the job posting. Long story short, I applied for the job. I went through 2 rounds of interviews. And actually, they told me that they pulled out the posting and they realized they needed a proposals manager instead at that point of the growth of the company. And so I ended up getting the job. I was the founding proposal manager, and then I eventually grew the team into 4 of us at some point. And I think the important thing to note is that there wasn't actually a cap. There was actually just a cap for me at that company. So like when I switched to Spare, it was so cool. I learned so much in a fast-paced company. I built processes that helped the proposal team scale, helped account executives learn how to write a proposal, and we just scaled our output by ways we couldn't even have imagined. And I think it's important to note that it's the context of where you work, and also in the role of Spare specifically. When you work in proposal management, you're mostly working at a company that's selling to government. And so writing is a very strategic skill as well as project management. And so today the team is still like 3 people and we're growing it to 5 or 6. So there's actually exponential growth. I mean, ironically, I probably would have grew further had I stayed in the last role. But we backfilled me and we hired a phenomenal proposal manager. His name is Obaid. Shout out to Obaid.
Yeah.
And we're hiring 2 more proposal writers. So I don't think there's necessarily a cap. I think if you love it and this is like the career path that you want to grow in, you just need to make sure you're working at a company that has the growth potential and like is set up so that like there is deals for you to go after through that mechanism.
So I guess like the growth of a proposal manager really would be getting to work on bigger and bigger projects depending on the company. But is there, I mean, I guess it really depends on the company, but at Spare, what would the C-suite title be for the proposals team, or do they kind of fall under marketing as well?
Yeah, so at least in B2B, B2G SaaS where Spare operates, I think there's massive growth potential for this role. So I was a proposal manager. I eventually got promoted to senior proposal manager and proposal lead. So I built out a team for the first time manager, and I learned how to have those like difficult conversations. If I look further ahead at where, you know, that role could have gone, it probably would have pivoted into some sort of like sales leader role because it still sits within commercial and sales. And then we've also seen it kind of pivot to like strategy. It's really like if RFPs are a huge way that your buyers will procure, then there's a huge potential to just be a sales leader.
That makes a lot of sense. I recently made a video about breaking into tech and about how you pick the roles that you'd want to be in. And one thing that I've learned through my research, through my career, as well as talking to recruiter friends of mine, is that you really have to think about what roles contribute the most to the bottom line of the company, because every company is going to be different, right? So for some companies, they're going to really value a sales team over, let's say, a marketing team. Some companies are the opposite. They're going to value marketing team a lot more than a sales team even. And then in the case of Spare, they're going to value proposals, like the proposals team, because that is how they're landing the majority of their deals. So I think that's actually really interesting. Like I never have really gotten to know the B2G space and the B2B space in the capacity that you have, where proposals are how they're going to land their clients. Like even for me, I worked at a B2B software company, but it's B2 SMBs, right? So we're not writing proposals. We are selling in a very traditional way, marketing in a traditional way. So now that you are in that product marketing role, do you feel like you're still working in a role that really directly affects the bottom line? Or do you feel like, just what are your feelings about it, right? Because if proposals are how the company is landing most of their deals, where does marketing fit into that?
So for context, when I decided to move laterally into product marketing, we didn't have product marketing before. So it's a brand new function. And it was still sort of like, should it sit under marketing or should it sit under product? But at the time, we had a VP of marketing join and she was really pushing for a product marketing hire. And so, yes, I'm now in marketing. I'm not directly in sales. So it does feel like I am one step away from the bottom line. And so currently in product marketing, we're trying to figure out how like the enablement materials and the competitive intelligence insights actually helps us win more deals. So that's one way that product marketing has been trying to affect the bottom line. But a huge other part of it is also working with product and marketing.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting journey, starting a new function and managing expectations and communicating the value of product marketing to an entire company that doesn't know what product marketing is. That was challenge number one before I'm even thinking about affecting the bottom line.
That is so relatable. And I think probably will be for most people working in marketing. I don't know if it's the same when you are in a different industry, but in tech specifically, from what I have seen, is that marketers are always just consistently trying to prove their worth in a company. And it's so interesting because to me, as somebody who's been in marketing for so long, I feel like marketing and sales really, yes, they can be two major different functions in a company, but they're so related, right? You really cannot be without marketing. And at the company that I was most recently at, this is why I just enjoyed working with my CEO so much at this previous job that I was at, because he is or has been a CEO for several major fintech companies, but also has been on the marketing side as well. So he really advocated for the marketing team within the company. He really taught us as a team the importance of transparency when it comes to our work, not to make us feel like, oh, we need to show what we're doing at all times, but really just for the purpose of being able to show the other functions of our company that what we're doing is really key to selling the product and making sure that it gets out there and making sure that we're reaching the right audience. I think oftentimes, especially in a corporate tech role, it gets lost, like the importance of marketing. People just think it's fancy fonts and colors and branding and social and TikTok, and it's just this fun thing. But really, we are crafting the package of how the world sees this brand and company and product. And it's so important. But yeah, like I've definitely felt that kind of throughout my career, especially working in tech, because, you know, developers are always going to be just revered in a tech company because obviously they're building the product. And working with developers, I've just struggled so much in the past of trying to prove to them, okay, yeah, I know when I work with you, I'm here deciding the fonts of the website and the layout and how to, like, what photos to use and stuff. But behind the scenes, there's so much more strategy and thinking that goes into it. And yeah, it's just been interesting. It's been an interesting process in my career trying to get along with developers and try to bridge that gap and show them that we're really the link between them and the customers. Do you feel like you struggle with that at Spare as well?
I actually remember us talking about this because we share similar challenges being in the same type of industry. But surprisingly and thankfully, the engineering team at Spare, everyone that I've worked with are brilliant, literally brilliant. And they don't tend to like tell you what marketing should do. They really stay in their own lane. And I generally feel really respected by everyone that I work with.
Yeah.
On the website side right now, though, we're building a new brand refresh. And one channel is actually the new website, which is going to be huge. We're outsourcing the engineering part of work. So I don't have that same experience working internally.
Yeah, we did outsource our web development as well. And I don't want to say this as if all developers don't understand. It's just every once in a while you will meet one or maybe two developers that you really feel like you have to convince them of your worth at the company. And I think that always kind of puts a little chip on your shoulder as a marketer. Definitely something that I'm not holding a grudge or I'm not holding on to it, but it's not a nice feeling having to prove your worth when you know that you are contributing pretty major things to a company. But I'm glad that you're not having the exact same experiences. Most of the developers I've worked with, amazing, super talented, just like gives us full creative freedom. But yeah, I've definitely had experiences with a couple that were like, okay, just let's take a step back. No need for this to get so heated. Like, just, chill.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I've had my share of experiences of, people not understanding what product marketing is. And then by not understanding is pulling me in to do things that are not product marketing, which I can just get into. So it's really tough being a one-person function. Luckily, I have the opportunity to actually speak at all hands often, like really to level set with everybody on when you should reach out to me and when you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I think it just takes time, and I think it takes a lot of effort, just like talking about what you're doing and putting yourself out there, because people aren't going to know what product marketing does or what marketing does and all the strategy that goes behind it unless you like advocate for yourself.
I think that's something it's like a skill to advocate for yourself. And it's a skill that you develop over the course of your career, at least for me personally. But even I remember initially when I had first started in my career, I had no idea how to sell myself. Even now, as I'm starting to do a lot more freelancing and contract work, and I'm thinking about building my portfolio, it's really tough to like write about yourself and to sell yourself. That's just not something that comes easily.
I feel like I just had this conversation recently with, I think maybe Rav, but it's like a lot of the times it's like for me and her and maybe a lot of women in general, we naturally just like to be personable and like talk to people about how your weekend was. But sometimes we forget that in a working context, you also need to spend your time with the right people selling yourself as opposed to just being personable.
Yeah, totally. I think that, and I'm not trying to get into like a whole gender argument here, but I do think that it comes more naturally to men being able to sell themselves. And maybe it is because I feel like in most cultures, women were taught to almost appease at a very young age. Like we were taught to make sure that the feelings of others were taken care of before our own. And so I think that definitely plays into a little bit of how well we're able to advocate or speak for ourselves or sell ourselves. But every once in a while, I do meet some women who are just spectacular at it. They are such badasses and they're so good at just making sure that they are heard and making noise in like the industries that they're in. And I definitely look up to those people. It's something I very much so struggle with. When I'm thinking about me in the spaces that I'm in, how can I stand out and make a splash when I'm just not good at that in general, like doing that for myself. But yeah, I think it's a learning process. I mean, I am hoping that that's something that I'll get better at.
I think you're doing a much better job, like
Yeah.
watching you grow over the years. I think you're
Mhm.
doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you. My friends are always really good about advocating for me, even though I don't do it. I
Yeah,
appreciate
we're hard
that.
on ourselves.
We are hard on ourselves. So your experience of transitioning from one role to another was to move laterally within a company. Do you have any advice for somebody who is looking to do that? Whether it is moving laterally or moving to another department within the same company or wanting to switch roles entirely and move to a different company?
I think, first of all, it depends on how transparent that company is. For Spare, at least, we know a lot of things that are happening almost like instantly as it's happening.
Mhm.
If we're going to grow fast because of funding, we know that there's going to be new job opportunities. I think my advice for anybody that is, at a company, loves their job, but is maybe missing something and wants to try something else, I would just speak to, like, have coffee chats with other managers from other teams. At Spare, we host these things called donuts, where there's just on Slack, it automatically syncs you up with someone across the company for a 30-minute donut chat. And I think that's a really good opportunity to just ask that manager or ask that team lead to see if there's open opportunities, and then making sure you're updating your manager as well. My move laterally, it was supported by both managers, but I was very much, as soon as I found out that they approved a product marketing hire, I was just like, I think I want to do that job. And I just vocalized it first to my manager. And then I had a coffee chat with the hiring manager, who is now my manager today.
I think that there is this, I feel like in some companies, in some industries, managers just don't make it so easy for people to move, whether it is laterally or whether they're trying to get a promotion to a different department. I often hear horror stories of people who are trying to do that. They're trying to either move laterally or move up into a different role, and they're being held back, like literally held back, because the company doesn't want to go through the effort of having to backfill for that position and having to retrain. And so it creates this paradox where it's like you almost don't want to do as well at your job because you don't want to get yourself into a position where you feel like the company wants to hold you back so that they can keep that position filled. I don't know. I've just heard so many stories of that happening, not necessarily always in the tech space, but definitely a lot of it happening in the tech space. I feel like, yeah, if you're a company, just something to note that it's beneficial for people to move laterally within the company because it creates like raving fans of the company, right? If somebody gets promoted within a company and they feel like they have a lot of space to grow, that person's going to want to stay at your company for longer. Whereas oftentimes, if you are really caging people into their roles and not trying to also support their career dreams and goals and their career path, that person's probably going to leave because the only way that they're going to get to the next step of their career is by leaving, right?
It is such a systemic problem. Like, it's nothing employees can do. It needs to come from the top. And I think I am very fortunate that I'm not working at one of those companies, but it really does matter in terms of at the founder, C-suite, manager level. These people need to realize that if they want to build up talent density, they need to keep the talent.
Yeah.
And if they want to keep the talent,
Yeah.
they need to actually have regular check-ins to figure out what their best performers are up to and where they want their careers to go. I think from my experience over the last 3 years working at Spare, I've actually only seen myself and one other person move laterally into a different role because it wasn't a fit or because they wanted to pursue something else. And I actually think that's very that's a very small percentage of like the people at Spare. And I think the more we see that happening, the more it encourages those conversations for people to explore careers within the same company.
I think that also with tech, though, people get really comfortable in their roles because oftentimes tech jobs are very cushy jobs. If you're a developer, yes, you could become, a CTO or moving down from that, like maybe the team lead of a group. But I feel like oftentimes developers are already getting paid pretty decent salaries. And if that person themselves like aren't super ambitious or their goal is not to become a CTO, people just get very comfortable in those roles. I see it happening in like marketing as well and sales. With an industry with such cushy salaries and like cushy roles, it can be so easy to get comfortable and not wanting to move laterally. But I do think it's also important to always at least explore what the options are within the company, because you never know, like maybe there is a different function that you would operate better in or fulfill you more. Just a little reminder, guys, like stay ambitious. Stay driven. I think it's fine for you to love your role, but just keep an open mind for those things, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be super corny, but I want to tie it back to like the theme of the podcast. You need to check in and make sure that you're still feeling good in your role.
Totally.
And if you're not feeling good, then you should make moves, right? And if you are not feeling good, but your role is super cushy, you could find feel good hobbies outside of work. That can work too.
Yeah, totally. Our friend Janice recently has been exploring the option of freelancing. I think that she's done a really good job at tackling the feel good aspects of her life and taking care of herself and finding hobbies like pottery and just making sure that she is good mentally and physically. But now that she's kind of set the baseline for all those areas of her life, she's like, okay, well, what do I do next? Right? Because she definitely is in a role that she is happy with right now. But sometimes you just need that extra project or something that's going to like give you your creative freedom or give you a little extra fulfillment in your life. And so it's nice to always just think about, it doesn't obviously need to be something that makes you money, but just something else in your life that's going to make you feel good at the end of the day, make you feel fulfilled at the end of the day. I think that's so important.
Give you that dopamine hit.
Yeah, it's all about the dopamine hits these days. So other than hiking and going on absolute adventures and expeditions on your weekends, what else do you like to do that really makes you feel good and makes you feel fulfilled at the end of the day?
Lately, I've just been obsessing over movement. So I take a lot of time whenever I can to go for walks. I've been learning a lot about anatomy and like body physiology through my yoga teacher training. And I've learned the importance of building bone density. It can help reduce cancer later in life and just it helps with a lot of like really big health risks later down the line. And so I just got a weighted vest. So I there's this yoga teacher that I love. I watch her on TikTok and she has a dog. She lives in San Francisco and she walks her dog almost every morning. And she does these, start the day with me at 6 a.m. type vlogs.
Yeah.
And I watch her walk her dog every morning. She puts on her vest. Some days she'll run, but most days she's walking. And so because she lives in San Francisco and she lives near trails, so do we here in Squamish, she decided to get a vest and she was just like talking about how good of a workout it was.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, I do a lot of yoga, but I don't have enough weight training and resistance training built into my workout routine. So I wanted to build the resistance as I was doing some form of movement.
Yeah, that's actually really smart. And now I really want one. You're going to have to send me. Are you just getting it on Amazon?
Yeah, I got it on Amazon and I got a really good basic one where I think every pound that you have is like only 2 pounds. So you can take it out.
Oh.
So you can start lighter. I will take out maybe 6 pounds to go running with it. And I'll pop it back in if I do a walk or a hike. And then I recommend getting the one that has a zipper so you don't have to like pull it over. You can just zip it up, and then you can also adjust the straps.
What's the total weight when all the weights are in it?
I think there's I think 6 in the back and 4 in the front.
So each of them are a pound?
2 pounds.
2 pounds. So it's like 20 pounds?
About 20 something. Yeah.
That's heavy.
It is, but because you can take it out.
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
good.
Start lighter. Okay, you're gonna have to link me that after. So, being somebody who has all of these different interests, and you've worked in 2 major industries now, and you are doing yoga, and you love to travel, and you love all these different things in your life, what does a dream life look like to you? What does a dream ideal week look like to you? Maybe even if you didn't have to think about like, oh, I have to clock in 9 to 5. Like, what does a dream day or week look like to you?
I think that question and my answer to that is probably ever changing. But if I were to answer that today, I think it is a culmination of like all the things that I've set up around my life.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to continue living near nature. I love mountains and I love the water. So I would want to live and continue to live in a place like Squamish. And if it's not in Squamish, I envision, living in Europe. We've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
There's ton of like Swiss Alps, French Alps, like all these places that I would love to be close to. But I definitely at the heart of it, I want to be near hiking and I want to be near like accessible trails.
Mm.
When I think about my dream life or like a dream week, I think yoga is this practice that means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently gone through a practice of meditating every day for a month. I think I'm going to keep it up in the morning, but a perfect day for me and a dream life would consist of me having, a morning routine where I can move my body, I can clear my mind through meditation. And so I see that as not having to clock in at a certain time.
Mm.
I just see me starting work when it feels appropriate. I know you have like a big morning routine. And I think for me, I definitely want yoga, movement, and meditation to be a part of that morning.
Mm-hmm. Is it not right now?
It started to be in the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I am building my dream life. But on the work side, I think doing product marketing is really creative and really inspiring. I get a lot of autonomy and ownership in the projects that I do. It's usually a quick, I have this idea. Is there any dissent? If not, I'm going to start.
Mm-hmm.
That type of environment. So I definitely want to keep that into my career. A dream life could be doing something like that, maybe in a freelance capacity, sort of like how Janice envisions her future over the next few years, but really dialing that back down because right now, I work 40 to 50 hours a week, and that doesn't leave a lot of time to build things and create.
Mm-hmm.
So a dream life for me is maybe dialing back down a little bit eventually and being able to create and build.
I love asking this question, especially because of like the stage in life that I'm at right now, where I've recently left my big girl tech job and I've moved more towards being truly the master of my schedule and figuring out how I want to spend my time when it comes to the work I do, as well as like how I live my life. And it's just interesting to hear you talk about it because I feel like maybe it's because I have been doing passion projects for so long and I've kind of always had a side thing. But for me, I have the opposite problem of even now that I am the master of my schedule, just fill my schedule full of work. And then what I'm left to do is actually try to schedule in and make sure that I'm doing the other stuff, the other things that fulfill me. I think there is this aspect of like, I still go to sleep every night feeling really fulfilled because my work really fulfills me. And at the same time, though, I feel like I also know that I'm not prioritizing life enough.
I also think that's why you motivate me and all our friends so much. And as long as that's sustainable for you, right? But you're a huge inspiration to us with like all of the projects you're starting and like your ability to juggle so many things.
Yeah.
I think I have the flip side approach where I am prioritizing my mental health, like my lifestyle. I do a lot of fun things. I always joke with Alexi about how like hedonistic we are. We like seek pleasure and we like want that instant gratification of, we're off work, it's sunny, let's go hit the trails.
Yeah.
But I think I'm hitting that point where, I'm starting to want to spend more time reading books on product marketing to further my career or bring that back to Spare, or I have this itch to start a side project.
Yeah.
It's more of the flip side for me. So it's interesting to hear your perspective.
So do you kind of have a next step in mind when it comes to your career or wanting to start a side project? Do you have any ideas? What's really next for you?
Right now, I'm obsessing over product marketing still. I love it. I'm always consuming a lot of things about it. I really want to keep growing in my career in product marketing. I also want to free up more time, and that might mean doing less of walking after work or doing less backcountry camping this summer. But I am starting to spend more time thinking about like potentially building, my brand around a niche that I really want to take over, which is the things that I love. We talked about like, I don't know, the athleisure fashion meets outdoor aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessing over that right now. So I'd love to just meet more people that are into that type of thing, and see where that takes me.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something there. There's that, you probably already know them, but like Gorp Girls, I think it's their account on Instagram. But they're this, actually, I'm not even entirely sure about how they started or what they are, but I do know that they host these little events in different cities. So they're like pop-up events, and it's like around the fashion, but also around the community aspect and nature. Because obviously Gorp, anything really, the original purpose of this attire was made for the outdoors. So yeah, they do like group hikes together, and they're always just a group of like fun, like-minded girls who like this fashion vibe, but also want to do activities together. And I think it's really cute. But I can totally see you doing something that is very community-based like that, and like starting something that is very community forward. I've always, whenever we've talked about, like, even if it's just me and you, we've talked about your brand and like what your project could be. Whenever I think about it, I always imagine that it's something that to do with other people. Even when we were talking about, like, I was giving her the suggestion of starting a podcast, but the reason behind that suggestion was literally because you're so good at talking to people and like you love meeting people. You love learning about people's stories. I always tie you with community or like people or like being very sociable, I guess.
I mean, every time I talk to you, it's like a needle pusher to, maybe I should do this thing. I think we all fall into that bucket sometimes of having a lot of ideas or just being afraid to start or just being stuck in the planning phase of what do I want to do? What if it's not perfect? And I mean, failing is scary, right? So
it's terrifying.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to do. I think at work also, I'm scared of failing. I'm doing a lot of things that are pushing me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I think I really should actually do more of what I do at work outside of work.
Yeah.
Is I just do a lot of things that make me uncomfortable.
Totally. One of my favorite quotes ever, like truly, it has just become a motto of my life. And something that I deeply believe in, but it is that growth happens in the discomfort zone. And it's something that has just stuck with me. I heard it somewhere when I was still in school or like just leaving school, entering my career journey. And it's just stuck with me this entire time. And it's been something that I've tried to model in all areas of my life, but it's so true. Like the growth is never going to happen in your comfort zone because that's just, you're not pushing yourself to try anything new or experience anything new. And I think it's definitely something that we do a lot of at work and we have to do a lot of in marketing. And so why aren't we applying? Like I'm realizing now that I have learned so many great mindsets and just things from tech or from marketing that I've just taken into my personal life. In one of the last episodes, I talked about how I have adopted the idea of iterating and failing forward into my own life as well. And that's something that I learned from tech. Like iterate is just a word that you hear every day when you're around developers. It's like iterate. Like,
fail fast, fail hard.
Fast. Yeah. Fail forward, fail hard, get that MVP out. And then we'll talk about it. It's like, okay, cool. That's actually a great way to think about things and a great framework. How can I do that in my own life? And so it sounds so cheesy, and I'm sure that tech people hate hearing those words now, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Just get her done, like do the thing, get the minimal viable product out there, whatever that looks like, to whatever it is you're working on. And then from there, iterate and learn from it. Continue to grow, because how are you going to know if you can do something if you don't try, right?
Yeah, I actually love that concept when applied to your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Because the more I used to think starting a business is this, okay, wow, this person built this cool thing. How did that start? It's so polished and professional and it's gone so far. But when you actually follow it along, they're just failing hard, iterating, and then making it better over time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something I've been thinking a lot about, because it's like that fear to start something, I guess.
Yeah.
One is you need to know yourself and know what you like. It has to be something that you're going to consistently keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part is like, if you can get over that fear of failure and just keep refining it, you can plant the seed and grow it into something really big and beautiful.
I want to end this podcast off with you letting us know a piece of advice that really stuck with you. So for me, it was like the iterate thing, as well as the like growth happening in the discomfort zone quote. But is there a piece of advice or a quote that you've learned during your career journey, either from a mentor or from a book that you read, that just absolutely stuck with you and is something that you live by now?
I guess I think a lot about it in a working and professional context, but I'm sure you can apply it personally. But a quote that really stuck out to me is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I often like think about this, because when I was first growing into my career, you know, I was a junior and then I became a manager and then now I'm back to an IC. And time and again, I just realized I'm the type of person that defaults to IC. I think we've had a conversation about this before, but when I have an idea or I want to do something, I just want to do it myself because I trust that I can get it done. And a lot of the times I burnt myself out in the process, or I've just realized I could have done a lot more had I just delegated or brought in people to help me. And it was just a big learning for me, especially as I learned how to build a team. And yeah, it's stuck with me even till now, because I tend to just want to get things done.
I'm the same. For those of you who don't know, I see as individual contributor, but yeah, no, I'm totally the same. And it's honestly something that I'm also working on. It's just like making sure that I am open to getting support when I need it and open to asking for that help. Yeah, I don't know. We can like dive into this so much more about our backgrounds and our culture and where that sort of mindset of wanting to be an IC and valuing that so much comes from. But maybe we can save that for a different episode, because that's a whole different floodgate to open. But yeah, I love that.
I think maybe a parting thought is I just learned through that experience that if you don't have what you need to get your idea or project done, you're actually going to just suffer down the line. You're better off asking for help and negotiating for more resources before you burn yourself out. In a working context, that's what I learned, is you'd rather have hired that extra person or negotiated for that 6 months in advance than, you know, burning out fires and being reactive. And I think at a more personal level, I think it applies the same. If you don't reach out for help early, you're going to just suffer and you're going to collapse and burn out.
Thanks for being on the podcast and being my first guest.
I'm honored.
Did you have fun? How was the experience for you?
It was good. I was definitely nervous at first.
Me too.
Just being professional with your bestie is one. It's like, oh, am I sitting comfortably?
Yeah, me too.
But once we were like 10 minutes in, it was just flowing for me.
100%. Well, thank you so much for being here. Let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. If you want to connect with me professionally, you can find me on LinkedIn. Starting to make some TikTok videos. You can probably find me there too.
Okay, I will put all of her links in the show notes, but that is everything for this episode with Terri. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you're listening from, and I will be with you in the next episode. I want to say see you in the next episode, but I realize some of you are just listening. So I will be in your eardrum in the next episode.
Eardrums, love it.
All right, bye.
Bye.
It's heavy, this mic.
Okay.
I was like holding on to it and I was like, Jesus
This is like
Christ.
the workout that you wanted with your wrist.